Hey,
There we
how
go.
are you?
We're good.
How's everybody doing? Yeah. Natasha's new to Calgary. Let's give her a Calgary welcome.
Thank you. Just don't tell them where I'm from. We don't like to talk about that.
So you're from Edmonton?
Gary, I'm supposed to be putting you on the hot seat, not the other way around.
I didn't agree to that.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. John mentioned it. This is a big year for you. 30 years as the NHL Commissioner. Where do you get the energy to do it? I was speaking with one of your associates, John, out there. He was telling me your travel schedule.
You know, it got focused on this year because it's 30 years. And yes, relative to other tenures, it's up there or sets a record. To me, it's just a number. And so it doesn't seem like 30 years. I'm probably delusional enough to think that I'm as energetic as I was 30 years ago. I think I am, but who knows? But I love what I do. The game, the people around the game, whether it's front office, players, people in the media, our fans, season ticket holders, our business partners. This is the greatest sport in the world, and it's an honor for me to be able to do this every day. And I don't tell this to the executive committee when I'm negotiating with them, but I have a lot of fun doing it.
Do you have a favorite moment or proudest accomplishment when you look back at the 30 years?
You know, I don't do the legacy thing where, well, what's my biggest and best accomplishment? That's for other people to say and criticize. And actually, when there were a lot of articles on the actual day of my 30th anniversary, which was February 1st, and I particularly enjoyed the articles that said, well, you know, he's done some good things, he's done some bad things, but somebody else could have done better. And I'm okay with that. More importantly, it's been always the ultimate team sport has always been the ultimate team effort. I've had great support by ownership. You know, we have great owners here in Calgary, but we actually have 32 great sets of owners throughout the league. The organization that we have at the league office is first rate. I'll put it up against any of the other sports. Got to lean this way a little bit too. The chair's tilted. The players have been great. I haven't always agreed with the Players Association, but when you think about how we together collaborated and got through COVID as good as we did, fans, the ones that come up and talk to me are always very nice. The ones who yell from a block away, not so much. But everything that's going on is a function of the fact that the people associated with this game are great people, and they love the game. The thing that I like to do best is once a year, although I missed it last year because I had COVID, is present the Stanley Cup. Greatest trophy in all sports. And the reason it's so great, yes, it's an honor, but, you know, when I was a lot younger and sports wasn't as visible in terms of what goes on around the sport, and most sports used to give trophies in locker rooms, and everybody started imitating what we do with players skating around the ice with the cup. I get an incredible view of the players at that moment that they've just won the cup. I can see the emotion and the passion in their eyes, and that to me never gets old. And so the best thing I get to do is give the cup.
Highs and lows, obviously, in the last 30 years, as with any job. Do you have any regrets?
Well, I don't think every decision I made was exactly right. It would be silly of me to think to the contrary. Nobody bats 1,000. But, you know, there are things that we've done which some would think are controversial, like the year we lost the season, which I hated. But if you think back, the only reason we have 32 healthy franchises, the only reason we still have 2 franchises in Alberta, and the only reason the game is as good and as exciting and as competitive and entertaining as it is because we have a system where everybody can compete. We have the best competitive balance in all of sports, Uh, Virtually every game of the regular season matters. There's nothing like our playoffs, particularly the first round. And so we paid a tough price to get something that is essential to what we are today. And unfortunately, we couldn't persuade the Players Association without losing an entire season that this is what we needed. If we had to do it all over again, we would have done the same thing because, again, we wouldn't have had teams here and in Edmonton, by way of example, if we hadn't changed the system.
We're going to sort of jump around here, lots of topics to cover. I wanted to ask you about Ottawa and just what's going on with the rink there. And I think what Canadians really want to know is Ryan Reynolds a really nice guy? Is he as nice as he seems?
Actually, you want to see the pictures I have on my phone?
Yes, yeah.
And the funny thing is, he asked to take the picture with me. Astounding to me. He's a great guy. He's not just an actor. He has his own advertising agency. He bought the soccer team, football team for you Europeans in Wrexham. He is the real deal, and this is a real passion play for him. There are well in excess of a dozen groups or people that have qualified to do the due diligence portion. There's an investment banking firm that's handling the process. And since everybody's now doing the due diligence, my guess is sometime mid this month, they'll start taking preliminary bids. The Senators will stay in Ottawa. Somebody buying to move is not an option. The only move they may make might be downtown to LeBreton Flats in a new arena, which would be a pretty good thing for that franchise. But, Eugene Melnick was a passionate, really strong owner who believed in the NHL, the Senators, and Ottawa. And while his daughters, who were fairly young to be owning a professional sports team, have decided it was in the best interest to sell the team as part of their legacy, and from a league standpoint, that team isn't going anywhere except maybe downtown.
Let's jump to the rink in Arizona, the Mullet Arena. I was there with the team last week. I found it quite charming. I thought it was great. I know there's lots of varying feedback. What are your thoughts on it and just the intimacy of it?
It's intimate. It's a fun experience. And most importantly, it's temporary. The Coyotes had no place else to play. Long story as to why. They're in the process of trying to build a new building. They've gotten all the approvals they need except one to break ground, and there'll be a referendum for the citizens of Tempe to approve or not approve. If, in fact, it's approved, and we hope it will be, they will promptly remediate polluted ground. Oh, sounds familiar. I think you got that here, too. The ground will be remediated, and there'll be an arena and a new district, not unlike the ice district north of here. These are all pretty good concepts if you're a city in the market for a new arena and a new part of your city. So they're going to be great. We're hoping the referendum passes, and then we're good to go. It's unfortunate that the other people in Greater Phoenix would like to see the team move, not the hockey fans. But, there are other people who control arenas and prefer that they leave as opposed to being competition. But at the end of the day, this was the only option they had to stay there, and we're hopefully just one step away from moving forward and making this a reality. And, it's interesting. Hockey players are now being developed in places like Arizona. Just ask Austin Matthews, who has said if he didn't go as a 4 or 5-year-old to a Coyotes game with his uncle, he wouldn't be playing hockey today.
I was going to save the question about the arena in Calgary for later, but let's go to that right now. Are you going to meet with the city about that, a new event center? Do you have an update at all?
I'm actually, after we finish our gathering together, I have an appointment with the mayor. And listen, the bottom line is, and I'm not going to negotiate with the mayor, but I think it's important that while we've had some discussions, we have a face-to-face one. You have a great ownership group here. this is a place that loves hockey and hockey matters. But the reality is this building is past its due date. And at some point, it's going to become not viable or inhabitable by anybody, not just the hockey team. And there needs to be what's going to happen next. And we're all committed to trying to get something done that makes sense, not just for the Flames, but for the city. I mean, the quality of life in any major city, major league city, and I believe Calgary is a major league city, you want to have family shows and concerts and all the other good things that go to major league cities. What's happening now is concerts are not there. There were 50 more concerts in the last year, I believe, in Edmonton than there were down here, and it's because they have a nice new state-of-the-art arena, and the ice district. For those of you who haven't been there, those of you who have will agree with what I'm saying, has transformed Edmonton. Hopefully there's a vision for the future here in Calgary, because Calgary is a great city, great sports town, great hockey place, and we want it all to work.
When we talk about different ways to grow the game, F1 Drive to Survive on Netflix has been hugely popular and I think has helped grow racing. Now there's a full swing about golf on Netflix as well. Does the NHL have any sort of plans to do something similar to give fans sort of that behind-the-scenes look, which I think love?
Well, yes, there are constantly plans to do more, but for years we've been doing a road to the Winter Classic, road to the Stanley Cup, and so what we know is that fans, but particularly younger fans, millennials and Gen Zs, want to know more than just about the game. They want to know what's happening behind the scenes. They want to know what their favorite players, eat for breakfast, where they work out, what routines they go through, what kind of pets they have, what kind of cars they drive. And that's all part of being relevant as a sport. And it's all part of connecting with your fans in ways that, at least for my generation, which actually goes back as far as black and white TVs, is not something that we were exposed to or were given any access to. And I think it's great for the sport, particularly our sport, because our players are so terrific, not just on the ice, but off the ice.
Another all-star game in the books last month. Every year there's always differing opinions on that as well. What are your thoughts on the game, and do you think it needs to be improved, revamped in any way?
The game, the 3-on-3 is fun because a regular all-star game, the NFL has this problem. It doesn't get played in terms of the physicality the way a normal game is played, but the 3-on-3s become an exciting, fun part of our game, and the players get into the winner-take-all format, particularly in the deciding third period game, because, and I've had players say this to me, well, I'm here, we're now in the last 20 minutes, and I can either go home with $100,000 or nothing. I'll vote for the $100,000, and they actually play. The place where we need work is the skills competition on Friday night, and we've been discussing it internally, and we've even been talking to some players about it as well. We need to do something to make it a little more exciting, relevant, and easy to follow. And 3+ hours is too long. Longer than our games. Everybody agree with that? Yeah. Okay. I'm doing a just simple poll of fans. Okay.
You can email your suggestions to Gary about how to.
Just yell them out. It's okay. How's it doing over there? They tilted my chair the wrong way, so I'm going to turn my back to you for a minute. Next question.
Yes. What are your thoughts on the format of the playoffs?
I love it for two reasons. One, the wild card makes it fun and interesting. Our regular season races for most of our teams go down to the wire. It promotes sort of divisional rivalries. And the interesting thing is today, whether you use 1 through 8 or the format we had, the matchups would be the same. And so what happens is certain times a year, the media starts looking for things to write about. Oh, change the format. And some people have preferences for other things. what we have works extraordinarily well. There's probably nothing better in playoff sports than our first round. And in terms of 6 and 7 game series, we get more than anybody else. And under this format, more than any other format we've ever used. So maybe some people want to make a change, but that's in search of a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. It's more a matter of preference. And I think what we have has been working really well.
The digitally enhanced dasher boards were introduced this season. What's the feedback been on that?
Well, initially, from an advertiser and club revenue generation standpoint, it's been nothing short of phenomenal. The media, the people who broadcast our games like it, the advertisers like it. Initially, in the first week, we had a couple of technical glitches which got too much attention in terms of what it was and the number. You remember, we're doing this 1,312 regular season games, and I think we have something like 11,000 insertions that we're responsible for putting in. The few mistakes we had early on were human error, not technology. The technology works better. The criticism says, well, it switches during play. It's a distraction. If you're watching the dasher boards as opposed to the game, it may be a distraction. If you're watching the game, you don't notice it. And I got criticized for what I'm about to say, so I'll say it a little more clearly. When the puck is moving and the background is the digitally enhanced dasher board, which is more of one image, it's less distracting than all the little dasher boards with different logos and names on them than we have now. I think kind of like the nets behind the goal. People always object to change, understandably, and then you get used to it. And I don't think it's a distraction. And ultimately, where we'd like to get is, during a game, the way your video board in arena is being programmed, where when there's a goal, something comes up, or power play or something else. Ultimately, we think we're going to be able to give clubs the ability to control that and use it on television the same way to do a game presentation as you do in the building, which will be a real enhancement. This is the preliminary step on a journey that we think will get better and better. And the technology took us a long time to develop, but it works really well.
I have a few questions here from the folks in the audience. So
Uncensored,
these are the hard
unfiltered.
ones. No, don't worry, I got you here.
You got me? Good.
They'll be okay. On the 13th anniversary of the Golden Goal in Vancouver, any update on Olympic participation?
The update is, I could give you a litany of reasons why going is a problem, a distraction, interferes with our season, and doesn't make sense. However, it's important to the players, and a lot of fans want to see best on best. So we are committed to going, provided. We were supposed to go to Beijing, but there was a proviso that said if COVID messed us up, wasn't the exact words in the agreement, but you have the idea. COVID messed us up, we could bail out. We had to reschedule that season 155 games because of COVID and buildings being empty and everything else, and so we couldn't go. Where if the IOC, International Olympic Committee, and the International Ice Hockey Federation and the organizing committee in Milan do what they're supposed to do, which is take care of our players, transportation, insurance, their families, then we're going to go. But if they don't, it costs somewhere between $20 and $30 million for us to go to the Olympics. This isn't about us making a profit. These are out-of-pocket costs for insurance and the like. We never pay that, and everybody understands that we're not going to pay that amount of money for the privilege of shutting down in the middle of our season. But if the IOC and everybody does what they're supposed to go, we're going to go.
10 years from now, what will be the NHL's biggest challenges?
When in this digital, fast-moving, AI, social media world where media is evolving, the biggest challenge is to continue to evolve and stay relevant, to make sure you're connecting with your fans the way that they want to be connected with, and that means creating more and more content. But most importantly, everything we do starts with the game. And we have to make sure that the game and the players who develop into NHL players continue to demonstrate the speed and the skill that they have that makes our game so entertaining.
What steps is the NHL taking to promote diversity, equality, and inclusion?
It's a front burner issue for us to make sure that we're continuing to do the right things, whether it's hiring practices, whether it's training, whether it's education, whether it's grassroots programs, both at the league level and the club level. This isn't about, and there's a lot of talk about what's woke and isn't woke. This is about just making sure that people who want to be a part of the game find a welcoming environment, no matter who you are or what your background is and what you believe. And part of that process is making sure, people have an opportunity to get acquainted with us, and that the people who are part of the game are welcoming and inclusive.
Will there be another NHL expansion team anytime soon?
Nothing that we're planning on. The last two expansions, Seattle and Vegas, despite prognostications that we were crazy, turned out to be incredibly successful, among our most successful teams, certainly off the ice. We're not engaged on any expansion process. We're not focused on expanding, but I do regularly get expressions of interest from places that want to have a team. Atlanta, Quebec City, Houston, Salt Lake City, and a couple of others. And these are places that say, if you were thinking of relocating, which we're not, or you're thinking of expanding, we'd really be interested. But it's not anything we're pursuing right now. These are good questions.
Great questions.
I
agree.
Keep them coming.
This one is really good. I like this one. You've been the commissioner for 30 years, which means you've presented a lot of Stanley Cups over those 30 years. Are there any, or is there one that stands out to you from the others?
I have 3 children, all of whom are married, and 7 grandchildren, and I love them all equally.
No, that's not a good answer. You have to pick one.
No, I don't. The first time I did it was in '93 in Montreal when the Canadiens beat the Kings. I know you don't want to hear that. Everyone's different, and as I said, the first time I didn't, and it was a weird experience. So last spring, when there was more and more travel going on, and I was at more and more games for the first time in 2.5 years, and our buildings were getting full, I got COVID in the middle of the Stanley Cup final after Game 4. And I had just flown into Denver from Tampa, and my wife was yelling at me, "You don't sound right, you got to take a COVID test." And I took COVID test, and I was positive, and we flew home, and I physically could have presented the cup on that Sunday, which was Game 6. I'd missed Game 5, obviously, because we flew back. And my doctor said, physically you could do it. You get on the plane, you'd be fine. And then we had a collective discussion that said, in order for me to do that, I would be violating the very protocols I had been enforcing for 2.5 years. And I didn't think it was appropriate, and certainly not as visible as that violation would have been. So I sat on my couch at home watching Deputy Commissioner Bill Daly present it. He did a great job. But it was an out-of-body experience to be sitting on my couch for the first time in 29 years watching it. And, I was kind of rooting for a Game 7, because if there was a Game 7, I would have been out of the protocol, which is why we didn't tell anybody at the time I had COVID until the very end of the game, so that the media that were broadcasting the game would be able to explain why I wasn't there, at which time my phone exploded because people were questioning why I wasn't there. It was that simple. So that one was memorable because I didn't get to give it.
How special is that moment? Like, hearing you talk about it now, you are quite regretful you weren't there.
Nothing I could do about it. Life is full of twists and turns. You can make all the plans you want, but you got to deal with the reality of what's before you. And COVID was kind of an interesting and challenging time. You know, we had to do a lot of things. I lived in Edmonton in the bubble for 3 weeks. As I mentioned earlier on, we had great collaboration across the board with everybody having anything to do with our game and our league. And we got accused regularly, particularly the media, of making things up as we went along. Well, actually, that was what we were doing because none of us. And listen, COVID was a big deal for everyone. It wasn't just us. It wasn't just sports. I mean, all of us had to live through a difficult, challenging time under a circumstance none of us had ever seen before, and hopefully we never see again.
This question is from Kathy. My nephew in Australia is seeing the game grow. He wants to know if he will see an exhibition game there soon.
Maybe. We've been approached. It's a long trip, but Australia has a great tradition of sports fandom, and we've been approached with possibilities of playing preseason game there. It's nothing that we're finalized in any way yet. It could happen at some point. We play games. We played games this year in Prague. We played games in Finland. We generally try to respond to the expressions of interest to the extent we can without interfering with our schedule of games here in North America.
Another Heritage Classic is on the horizon. How would you describe the strategy right now towards the outdoor games?
If you've never been to one, I suggest driving up the road for the Battle of Alberta. It is a remarkable experience. Listen, we generally play in front of 18,000 people under in a tightly controlled environment. Taking the ultimate reality show and putting it outside in the element in front of 50, 60, 70, in one case, 105,000 people. It is really a special event, and it's just another way to connect to the game. So, I know in Edmonton they'll be buying a lot of tickets. When tickets go on sale, I strongly recommend you get them quickly because they will go fast. But it's a great experience. It's one, if you've never been to a game. I know some people say, oh, you look at it on TV, the stadium's decorated differently, the opening ceremonies are a little different, but then you got to be at one of th's games to believe it. It's very special.
Agreed. Okay, this is an interesting one. We understand you're a big music guy. Can we play a song tonight at the game that only you people in this room would know is Gary Bettman approved? Tell us about your musical tastes, Gary.
Well, we got to go back to classic rock, so I'll show my age. There are actually two songs that I really like, which were basically one-hit wonders, and they sort of remind me of my time either at Cornell in the 70s or a little bit beyond. And they're both songs that probably nobody's heard of. One is Dancing in the Moonlight by Buffalongo. It was subsequently done by other artists, but the original by Buffalongo, which they'll never find, is actually the best version of King Harvest did a version. Jewel, or whatever her name is, did one now, bringing it back, but the original version's the best. And the other is Something in the Air by Thunderclap Newman, which, interestingly enough, I don't know if this was planted by my event staff, they actually played it last night during a stoppage in Edmonton, and I couldn't believe it.
Okay, we'll try to get it on.
So if you go, Google it, and you can go listen to those. Something in the Air, Thunderclap Newman, write this down, and then Dancing in the Moonlight by Buffalongo.
Dancing in the Moonlight is a great song. That one I know for sure. We could work that one in tonight, I think.
By the original?
No,
you got to go back. You can get it on YouTube.
Okay, I will look for it. The trade deadline is this week, and we've seen a lot of big trades already. What are your feelings on the way that the assets are just going back and forth between teams so far?
Teams at this point in the season have to make a judgment. Are you going to go for it, or is it time to rebuild? And, all the discussion about the T word, which I'm forbidden from using, but you know what it is. I don't believe that ever happens. And the players and the coaches and the managers I talk to don't believe it ever happens either. Our players are too driven to win. But you have to make certain decisions. the media gets hung up, oh, there aren't enough trades. It's not about the trades. It's about the teams heading into the stretch run and making the playoffs. And if it makes sense to make a trade, great. If you're looking to retool and rebuild, great. But trading for trading doesn't make sense to me.
Rule changes. Are there any on the horizon? Any that you're considering? Any that jump out to you?
No. We're pretty good. We have a GM's meeting in the middle of March, and we'll see if there are tweaks we want to make. Fundamentally, the game is sound. Somebody suggested, well, we let the officials review a double minor for high sticking to see if it was friendly fire. Maybe we should extend that to have a coach's challenge for any high sticking. Okay, because that's a hard call. Sometimes you don't have the right angle. We had a call last night in Edmonton, which was called was a match, and then they undid it because they went and saw a guy hit himself in the face with a stick. So fundamentally, the game is in good shape, and anything that we would do now would simply be a tweak.
The reverse retro program. What will the future be on that?
They were very popular. That's something that's club driven. And the clubs seem to all embrace it, and fans seem to embrace it because the retro jerseys flew off the shelves. So it's good to have fun with the way you express yourself as a fan, whether it's social media, tweeting, or what you wear to games.
A few more for you. Are you tired of getting booed for seemingly no good reason? Which is true. There's no good reason.
Wait a minute. I get booed? You mean that's for
I've
me?
I've never heard it.
That's
I don't know
for
what this
me?
question
I
is
thought
about.
it was for some. I always say when I get a question like that is, if everybody who came up to me at a game and said, I don't know why they booed you, I didn't boo you. If everybody who said that to me didn't boo me, then I wouldn't be booed. You know what? It's fine. It's become a tradition, and it's okay. You know what? I've concluded at this point, it's better than silence, right? Silence, people don't care, okay? But obviously, it evokes a passion in people. And there have been some decisions that I've made over the years, like when we were talking about the year off, that people don't like, didn't like, and so they boo me, and that's great. You know what? Keep rooting for our teams, keep rooting for our fans, keep watching on TV, keep buying tickets, and boo me all you want.
That's the perfect attitude. Last one here. Retirement, succession plan, any thoughts?
You're retiring?
At all?
You just got here.
Me. No, not for a while.
No, it goes back to where we started. I love what I do. I'm energized by it. It's challenging. It's stimulating. And, at some point, I understand that Father Time will tell me that, you know what, you should move on and let somebody younger do it. But as of right now, I'm having too much fun, so I am not focused on retirement. Maybe I'm in massive denial about the aging process, but I still think I have the energy to run the people that travel with me who are much younger into the ground. And I use that as a badge of honor. Right, John?
Well, we certainly appreciate you taking the time to be here, and I know that all the fans here, when you hand out the Stanley Cup this year, we hope it's to the Calgary Flames, for
Well,
sure.
first of all, thank you. Thank you all for being here, and most importantly, thank you for your support of the Flames. We're nothing without all of you, and we know that, and we appreciate it, so thank you.
Thank you.